Thank you for tuning in to another edition of Daddy Issues Podcast. I'm your boy. I'm your host, Danny D. Glad to see you again, man. You made it. You made it. I was worried about you for a second. I didn't think you were going to make it. I thought you were going to be late or just not show up. And guess what? I'm a scumbag because I prejudged you. And look at you. You're standing right here in front of me. And while you're standing here in front of me, I just want to go straight into our affirmations. You're beautiful. You look good today. Man, you took a bath today. You washed your ass. You smelling good. What's that? Lavender? Is that Old Spice? Oh man, you smelling good. You smelling good, you're looking good. That means you're feeling good. And I'm glad that you stopped by to get a little bit of these diamonds dropped on you, these pearls of wisdom dropped on you. Proud of you. Be proud of yourself. You conquered another day, you got out of the bed and you made it. You're standing on your own 2 feet. I'm proud of you. You should be proud of yourself. Hey, make that fucking bed. I've been watching you. I've been watching you. You ain't been making your bed in the morning. You thought I didn't see that? Make that fucking bed up. Fluff them pillows, man. Stop being a slob, man. You live in a pig pen? Clean up that room. I watched you not do it. Well, guys, welcome to episode 7 of season 1 of the podcast, man. Can you believe it? I remember it just like yesterday, man, when I did the first audio podcast, the D word, about how men deal with depression in their daily lives. And what do they say? The rest is history. Now look at us, man. We're living in 2030 fucking 5. I got a purple space light on me and I'm doing a video podcast. Man, times is changing. Times is changing, man. Matter of fact, tell me what you guys think about the purple light, man. I can switch it to a lot of different things, man. I can switch this to a lot of different colors, right? But you know what? I'm trying to see what the feedback is, if you guys even like the light, right? Got the little ambiance in the back, the plant, the light back there, and then the other few things, right? I don't know. I like it. So, again, this is episode 7. I don't know if you listened to episode 6, Beauty and the Beast, man. We had a young lady write into the show, and she was basically talking about some self-esteem issues she was having. Some issues she was going through, man. And she kind of expressed, she didn't really know what to do and, how to get through those. So we gave her a little bit of advice. We gave her a little bit of wisdom. And I think she's going to be okay, man. I think we broke through. I think we gave her some helpful tips, and I think we gave her some good advice, and I think she's gonna be okay. She's gonna be fine. We got a good show for you guys today, man. We got a good email, kind of a sad email, but an email nonetheless. And I hope you guys enjoy the information. Speaking of that, if you guys want to write into the show, it's gonna be dadissuespodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's dad. Like my fucking podcast. Like my shit. Share my shit. Y'all, man. Y'all pissing me off a little bit. Y'all really sitting in y'all rooms listening to my podcast, changing your lives, but not helping other people, man. Reach back. Didn't you hear the podcast I did called Hurt People Hurt People? Oh, you didn't listen to that podcast? Go listen to all my shit. You shouldn't even be listening to this right now if you haven't listened through 1 through 6. Come on, man. Y'all, you know what? I ain't about to get it. I ain't about to do this with y'all. I ain't about to get into it with y'all today. Right? We ain't about to get into an argument today. It's a beautiful day today because guess what? I'm here. You're here. We're here. We made it. Again, you know what I'm gonna say. If you've been following this podcast, you know what I'm about to bring up. I'm about to bring up that one perfect brick. That's what your goal should be today. And that's what you should be doing if you've been listening to this podcast, is every day trying to lay that one perfect brick down every single day. And again, that brick could be anything that you want it to be. It could be your diet. It could be your job. It could be your kids. It could be your wife. It could be anything. It could be your family in general, right? If your one perfect brick is not hitting your shit every day in the bathroom, Guess what? Lay that one perfect brick. Take that down from 4 or 5 times a day, smacking your shit, to 1 time a day, 3 times a day, 2 times a day, right? Lay that one perfect brick, man. Lay that one perfect brick. Every single day, that should be your goal. Okay, let's get into the email of today. Let me pull it up, guys. Let me pull it up. 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 All right, look at these, man. These are productions, man. Okay, you ready? I am. My face got bright like I'm going up to heaven. All right, Dear Daddy Issues Podcast. My name is Monique, and at the age of 42, I recently lost my father to a sudden heart attack. The heaviness of grief is compounded by the fact that our last conversation was strained, leaving me with a profound sense of regret. As I navigate this complex journey of mourning, I'm turning to your podcast in the hopes of finding guidance and solace from you or your listeners. How does one cope with the loss of loved ones, particularly when the last moments were marked with unresolved emotions? Your insights would mean a great deal to me as I navigate the challenging chapter of my life. Thank you for providing a space for healing conversation. Warm regards, Monique. Man, that's a beautiful email. You guys, man, I don't know if there's like some type of app or something you guys are using, man, for these emails, but they're put together, man. They're squared away. They're 10-8. It's a little police lingo for y'all. 10-8. Okay, let's get into it, guys. Monique, first of all, my condolences to you losing your father, man. It's never a good thing when you lose somebody you love, man. That's fucking terrible. That can be anything. That can be your mom, your dad, your dog, your goldfish, anything. When you have a investment into something, connection to something, and you lose it, man, that can feel like the whole world's fucking shattering. And then to compound it with a negative conversation, man, I can't even imagine, Monique, what that feels like, you know. And we take that stuff for granted every single day. And I'm glad that you wrote this email, because I think it's something we need to shine a light on, right? We go through this stuff all the time, and we take it for granted. We have these conversations with people that we love or we care about. And I'm talking about the negative sides of the conversation, the screaming matches, the insults, innuendos, the disrespectful things. And it all ties back to time, because we all believe we got time. We believe that for some reason we have all the time in the world. We believe that time caters to us, like it stands still specifically for us, and it doesn't. We don't think about those things. We don't take those things into account. That's why we don't really guard our mouths or our feelings or our emotions that much. Because if we cared about those type of things, which we internally do care about those things, I don't believe anybody intentionally wants to hurt somebody they care about, right? Now, getting to an argument or flying off the handle or living off of emotion, which a lot of people do, that's different, right? Because you do have an intent to hurt that person. And that's only because you want to get your point across, if that makes sense. That's why you're doing it. You're saying all these crazy fucking things. You're trying to say whatever you can to invoke that emotion that makes you feel better. That's what you're doing. You're saying whatever you can, whether it's hurtful, whether it's wicked, it's mean, because you want to evoke an emotion from that person that makes you feel better about yourself. Makes you feel like you won the conversation, makes you feel like you won the argument. And some people don't have limits when it comes to anger and emotion. Those are very dangerous people, and you have to be careful associating yourself with those people, right? You got to. Because those fucking people, man, they'll fly off the handle on you, man. They'll say something that'll get you out of character. But back to time. We all think we have time, man. And we do have a small amount of time on this earth, and it's not that much when you look at it in the bigger picture of things. But when it comes to relationships and people you love and these conversations, we feel like we got all the time in the world. We feel like we can say whatever to whoever because we always got tomorrow. And unfortunately, Monique, you're in a situation where, one, it was your father, which I'm assuming you have a deep connection to your father, because you wouldn't be feeling this grief that you're feeling. That's where that emotion's coming from, is that grief. Unfortunately, you didn't really speak on the conversation that you had with your father, but it wasn't a positive one. It wasn't a good one. I'm assuming It was a screaming match. I'm assuming that it was just a bad conversation, right? And really bad conversations depend on the perspective of the person. Some people may believe that a bad conversation is, what you're saying, but the other person that's having the conversation may believe that it's something that needs to be said, right? It's all perspective. I can be saying something to you that I feel like I need to get off my chest or that needs to be said, and you can take it as the most disrespectful thing in the world. I'll tell you who's good with that. Parents are good with that. Mom and dad, good old mom and dad are great for that, right? And you can't blame them because they raised you, Those are who are blessed enough to have like two parents in the home or just a parent in general, because some people don't. They raise you and they try to teach you the best they can, if they're good parents, and they try to lead you down the right path. But I think sometimes parents forget that we get older, right? Sometimes parents forget that at some point they can no longer tell you what to do. They only can suggest what they would like you to do. And that's a big disconnect with kids and parents. I shouldn't say kids. I should say like young adults and parents, right? Because you're an adult. If you're a kid, you should be listening to your mom and dad. And if not, you're going to get a boot in your ass. But yeah, they're good for that. So they'll, because and you can't blame them because they've been spending their whole lives correcting you, trying to put you on the right path. And as you become an adult or you get exposed and pipelined to different things, because really that's what people are at the end of the day. They're just a makeup of a bunch of different people that you met, right? That's all that you are. You're a combination or goulash of a bunch of people that you met over your life. And when you really sit and think about it, it makes sense. You meet somebody that you really like, right? They got a catchphrase or they have mannerisms or something that you really think is cool. You take a little part of that person, right? Then you meet the next person and the next person and the next person and the next person and the next person. And eventually you just, I guess you become unique in your own way because you have all these makeups of all these different people, but that makes you unique. But your parents, they spend your whole life, vetting those different personalities that you obtain. Oh, that's not good. That's not good. This is not good. This is not good. And, when you're younger, you have to listen to that. If you're respectful, you don't have to listen to it. But if you respecting your parents, you'll listen to it and you'll abide by their rules and do what do what you're supposed to do. But as you get older, you develop your own personalities, right? You develop your own opinions about things. You develop this sense, hopefully, you develop a sense of what's right and what's wrong. And sometimes that can clash because you're not, your parents can teach you as much as they want to. It doesn't mean that you're going to agree with it. What you agree with now, you're going to agree with later, right? So going back to parents not understanding the fact that they can only suggest, like I suggest that you do this. No, they still believe they can tell you to do something. You need to do this. And they're still living off the respect factor. Okay, they respect me enough to do what I'm asking them to do, but that's not how the cookie always crumbles. Sometimes you have a strong opinion about something, or you standing on business, as they say, and you won't budge, man, and that can cause a conflict. And sometimes with parents, we have to have those hard conversations, right? Sometimes we have to get into those screaming matches because that's our only way to, I'm not saying be disrespectful, but I'm saying like that's our only way to get our points across, or to make our parents realize that we're adults now. We're our own people. Some of us are responsible for other little people, right? But it's always a hard thing when you get into I don't want to say a bad situation, or you get into a bad conversation with a person and you regret it later, right? We're not even focusing on the fact that somebody like passing away, like in Monique's situation right now. We're talking about just a general overall conversation of somebody you care about. If you have a conscience, right? Because some people feel like they're in the right. They won't feel one way or another about it. They'll say what they need to say. They'll move on. And if you're not willing to adapt to their style of thinking, they'll just say fuck you, whatever. Just leave me alone. I'll cut you off. With people we care about or people we respect, I should say, When you get into a bad conversation, it haunts you. You feel bad about it, man. That's your conscience. Like, man, because everybody knows like they're not angels. They get in these conversations, these strong conversations or yelling matches or verbals, and they say things like I said earlier, like they try to invoke that emotion that makes them feel better about themselves or their point they're trying to prove. So they go low. And some of us are lucky enough, or most of us are lucky enough to be able to recant those conversations or discuss those conversations further or just apologize for them and say, hey man, I was fucking wrong. Some people are stubborn and won't do that, but most people, with a sense of some type of consciousness will say, hey, I'm sorry, man, I was wrong, or, you were right. Or, you know what, we both did some things. But some of us, like in Monique's situation, we have those conversations and we don't get to recant. We don't get to take them back. We don't get to say that I'm sorry. We don't get to say I was wrong. We don't get to say, hey, you were right. We don't get to say, we both did things. It's just stripped from us. It's taken from us. And that goes back to that because we all believe we have time. We all believe we have a ton of time. And you know what? And I believe that's where most midlife crises come from. You start to realize your sense of mortality. Like you start to understand, like, man, I'm getting old. I'm getting older. Like I'm actually getting old. Like I can remember when I was in my early 20s, and I used to tell one of my friends, like, and it's so crazy now that I would even say this phrase. Like I won't be able to say it now, but like, oh man, don't worry about it, man. We got all the time in the world. We're young. I used to literally say that to him, like, oh man, we should do this. I mean, bro, what are you talking about, man? We're young. We're young. We got time. And as you become older, man, you start to grasp that sense of mortality. Like, man, I'm not going to live forever. I'm getting older, right? And then you start to say unusual phrases that you don't, recall saying when you were younger. Man, I'm getting older. Times is changing, or man, where does time go? Or man, how'd you get big so fast? Or so we start to panic a little bit, right? We start to do things out of our character. We start to act different ways. We start to act strange in a way, right? Because we're trying to regain that sense of mortality. We're trying to gain that feeling, forever young feeling. Like, oh, I'm still young. I still can do this. But these things, like people passing that you love and, just anything in general like that, when you're losing a loved one or a loved thing, it makes you think about mortality a little bit more. It's like, man, I can remember when I was younger, and I don't know why this is so vivid in my mind, but I recall my father like lifting up the couch one day. My mom and my dad was cleaning the living room, right? And I'm just fucking being a little bad kid like I normally was. And I remember my dad picking up the couch with one hand, like lifting it up to vacuum under it, right? And he put it back down. First of all, like it blew my mind. I'm like, man, my dad is a fucking superhero. This man just lift this couch up with one hand. And I remember going over there, grabbing that couch, trying to lift that couch, and it wouldn't budge. It was like 10 tons of steel. And I don't know, man. I just remember looking at my dad like, man, my dad he's a superhero. But as I got older, I understood that, like, man, he was just a grown man. He just had grown man strength, right? That sense of wonderment was gone, right? And now I see my son looking at me the same way. Like, man, Dad, you're a superhero. You're the best. You're the greatest. You're the greatest. You're the best. And I just think we have to cherish those moments. We really have to enjoy those moments. A lot of us are the ones that are passing that information down to other people because we missed our opportunity to enjoy those moments. So we're constantly telling other people like, hey, enjoy it while it lasts, man. It's not going to last forever. Hey, you're not going to be young forever. Hey, give them their flowers while they're here. And Monique, it's a terrible situation you're in right now, right? Because I'm sure that you're You were close with your father. I hope you were close with your father. I'm assuming. Like I said, this grief you feel, that emotion you only invoke that emotion if you care about somebody, right? If something happens to somebody and you feel grief about it or you feel regret, it's because you had some type of emotion about that person or some type of unfinished business within yourself that you didn't get to pass along to that person. So you had this conversation with your father, right? It wasn't a positive one. You probably said some things you didn't mean. He probably said some things that he didn't mean. And unfortunately, you believe that you had time. He believed he had time. I will let things cool off. Then your father had a heart attack. And that time is stripped from you, stripped from him. And now you're sitting here with these unresolved feelings, these emotions that you almost can't handle. One, your father passed away, so you're dealing with that traumatic experience. I couldn't even imagine, right? We all know it's coming. I know it's coming. I know my parents won't be here forever. But my mind makes me believe that they will be, and that helps me, I guess, emotionally adjust to it. Okay, they'll be here forever. They're going to outlive me. And that's probably the same way you were thinking, like, this ain't the first argument I got in with Pop, so I'll be able to mend it later. So how do we get past that, right? How do we get past that grief? First and foremost, you have to understand that grief is okay. It's okay to mourn. You're in mourning, right? And whenever we're in mourning, especially when it comes to a loved one that's passed away, we invoke every emotion, every negative thought that we ever had about that person. And it's not really negative thoughts about that person, but it's the negative things that we could have done better. We wish we would have done better when that person was here. Oh man, I wish I would have spent more time with my kid. Or I wish I would have took dad walking in the mall more. I wish I would have, sat with him on that rocking chair and drunk that lemonade with him. So you're dealing with that. It's compounding, right? So the conversation that you had that you wish you could take back, that's just you have to understand that's just the cherry on top of the cake, the shit cake. That's not what's bringing you down somewhere. You're in mourning. You're hurt. You're hurt. And like I said, when you lose a loved one, you just your mind tries to tell you, plays this Rolodex of all these things you could have done better, all these regrets. And in reality, hopefully you and your father had a good relationship. He knows that you didn't mean it. He knows that you love him. You know that you love him. No one knows anybody's last thoughts before they head upstairs. Right? And I don't think your father was, cursing your name. Monique, I hate her. Why'd she do this to me? No, I don't think it was that. I think, honestly, he was thinking the same way that you were thinking, Monique. We got time. She's just mad right now. She's just upset. We got time. We'll fix it tomorrow. We'll talk about it later. And unfortunately, you didn't get to have that conversation. You didn't get to have that closure. But you have to understand, one, it's okay to grieve. And two, you have to accept the fact that we're not perfect, right? None of us are perfect. None of us do everything right all the time. And we have to try, and I know this is like a cliche a lot of people don't really like, but we have to honestly, especially when it comes to passing of loved ones, we have to focus on the good things. And I know it's like, man, I hear that all the time. Everybody says this, but that's the truth. The same way that you're rolling that Rolodex in your head of everything that you regret, everything you wish you would have said, everything you wish you would have took back or did differently, you have an opposite Rolodex of all the good memories, all the good conversations that you guys have. You have to take solace in knowing that those conversations and those memories and those times that you share with your father built on the fact that he knows that you loved him, right? I've been in millions of disagreements and verbals with my parents, right? And sometimes I don't even regret them for months. But then after a while, like when you start to reconnect with those people again, you realize how small and minute and insignificant those petty arguments were. Monique, you gotta allow yourself to mourn. You gotta allow yourself to be upset. It's okay. It's okay. You lost your father. You lost your pops. That's heartbreaking. That's traumatic. And I know you wish you can take that conversation back. I know you would give anything in the world just to be able to say, hey, Dad, I love you. I want you to know I love you. But like I said, you have to take solace in knowing that all those moments from the minute that you were a little baby walking around to an independent woman that you are today solidify the fact that you're showing your father that he's doing the right thing and that he loved you and you loved him. Right? Hopefully you weren't beating the shit out of your father and abusing him and being mean to him and thinking that's a totally different ball of wax. We're going to assume that you were a good daughter. I believe you were a good daughter. Right? Like I said, you're showing this emotion of grief, and to be able to show that emotion of grief, you have to have some type of attachment or investment into that person emotionally that makes you feel that way. So you gotta allow yourself to grieve, right? This is not going to be the only regret that you're going to have, right? This is not going to be the only negative emotion you have about your father's passing, or negative emotion you have about yourself. But you can't just verbally abuse yourself for days and months, and that ghost will start to fucking haunt you more and more and more. So that's my advice on it, Monique. You gotta, one, realize that you're mourning, you're grieving, so you're gonna have a lot more regrets and negative emotions about things you wish you've done better, things you wish you wouldn't have done, things you wish you would have did more. That's what this process entails, right? When a person that you love or care about is no longer here, you start to, unfortunately, value all the time that you spent together. And a lot of us don't get to do that in the moment, right? We don't get to do that. In even though we have the opportunity to do it in the here and now, we don't take advantage of it because of time. We feel like we have time. It's gonna be okay. It's just an argument. We never know, man. We never know. So allow yourself to grieve and allow yourself to be upset, to scream, to cry through it. You gotta get through it. You gotta scream, you gotta cry, you gotta mourn, you gotta be hurt because it's a hurtful situation. But you have to understand you have two Rolodexes. You have that Rolodex that's spinning through your mind right now of everything you wish you would have done, but you have that counter Rolodex of everything that you did do. Every time you did say you loved your father, every time you cherished moments that you had with him, or every time you made him feel valued, every time you made him feel like a good dad, every time you made him feel like, man, I did good with this one. You have to be able to invoke those emotions because those help. And this is not just you, anybody that helps you cope with the loss of something like that. Because we're talking about a parent, someone that obviously you knew your whole life. And this person not here anymore, that can be so traumatic for some people, they won't bounce back from it. Honestly, I think Kanye West is a good example of that, man. I think when he lost his mom, he just lost it. And he doesn't know how to bounce back from it. Right? Go through mourning. Go through your phases of pain. But you have to learn to love the memory of your father. And you have to learn to understand that he understood as a parent raising a daughter that he did a good job. I know it's rough, Monique. I know it's fucking rough. It's rough for me talking about it because it invokes emotions in me thinking about my parents. Like, man, what would I do? What am I going to do when my parents are gone? It's rough. But the good thing is, guess what, Monique? It's not the end of the world. It feels like it. It feels like a ton of fucking bricks on your chest. And I'm sure every morning you wake up, you're crying. Every night you're going to sleep, you're crying. And it's easy for me to say, but it'll get better. I promise you it'll get better. Right? Hopefully you got a good cast around you, and if you don't, I advise you to get around those people, right? Those people who bring up those times and those bring out those emotions in you, as far as like happiness. Oh, remember when dad did this? Remember when dad did that? Remember when dad said this and said that? It helps you cope and it gives you memories to cherish, right? We just got to focus on spinning that Rolodex, right? Positive things, good things. Nobody blames you. It was just your pop's time. It's shitty to hear, but it was his time. That conversation that you had with your father had no bearing on his time. It was his time. And both of you guys just made the common mistake of believing that it's fixable because we got time. Time's something we can't get back. Time is something that we can't get back. But the good thing about time, as it progresses and as we lose more of it, we cherish what we have left. That's important. As time progresses and we lose more time, we understand how valuable time is, and we cherish the time that we have left. You're going to make it, Monique. I promise you're going to make it. I promise you. I believe in you. And I believe that your father was a great man, and I believe he knows he raised a good daughter. I believe he's, I don't know your religious beliefs, but I believe he's looking down on you and like, hey, you're going to be okay, kid. I gave you all the tools you needed. You got the toolbox. You just got to utilize them. And as each day goes on and, you learn how to cope a little bit more a day at a time, you'll get through it. You'll get through it. I promise you. Just got to keep fighting. Got to keep fighting. Don't check out. I know you got all your groceries. I know you feel like checking out, but don't check out yet. Still got a couple more things to buy. Right? I appreciate you writing in, Monique. So that's a rough email. So, that's a rough thing to reach out to people and talk about. Hopefully I've gave you something during this podcast episode that you can use, something that you can rely on, some type of coping mechanism that you can use, some type of tool to add to your toolbox of things. But if you don't remember anything else that I said today, remember this. Time is precious. Time is everything. See, time is the real currency. And once it's gone, we can't get it back, unfortunately. And as it progresses and time goes on, we start to realize how valuable the time that we have left is. So take the time now. Take the opportunity now while you do have time. Cherish it. Do the things that you don't normally do. Get out of your character. Get out of yourself. Get out of your everyday norm. Go do things. Go talk to people. Tell people that you love them. Don't just rely on the fact that they know that you love them. Tell them. Why not? It's free. Doesn't hurt anybody. Spend that time. Fix those relationships that you know you should have fixed a long time ago. Talk to those people. Have those hard conversations. Deal with those traumas. Fix those issues. Because I know, just like me, you believe you got time. And the fact of the matter is, we don't have the time. It's just a small drop in the bucket. So, guys, that's the end of episode 7. I want to thank Monique personally for writing in and reaching out to me and reaching out to you. Don't forget that, guys. She's reaching out to all of us. Not just me, not just you. That's why you got to interact. That's why you got to write emails. That's why you got to give advice. I'm just a catalyst. I'm just a vessel, a voice. You guys are the true talkers, man. You're the information givers, because you guys are going through this stuff every day. Somewhere, someone is going through exactly what Monique is going through. So they can help. They can reach out. They can say, hey, This is what I feel about it. This is how I coped with that. This is how I dealt with that. Or maybe you guys will take something from this podcast episode and be like, man, you know what? He's right. I need to do some things. I need to do some internal soul searching. I need to mend some things. I need to fix some things. And I know you will. It's a progression, right? It's hard. I know it's hard, but like I say all the time I say this. If you seek out easy, if you always look for the easy road, your life will be hard, I promise you. Every time you go through life trying to find the easiest route, the easiest road, trying to circumvent the tough things in life, the things that build character and callous you, your life will be hard. But I promise you, if you seek out the hard things and try to conquer those things or learn how to adapt under pressure, your life will be easy. I promise you. When life gets hard, your life will be easy. Because you've adapted to those things. You lived in those waters. You lived under that pressure. So you know. You don't panic. You have those file folders in your head. A lot of people who seek out the easy road when it comes to those things, and they get hit with adversity, or for example, Monique, not specifically talking about Monique, but her situation, a death in the family, something traumatic, something that changes your character. If you don't have those file folders to rely back on because you've always took the easy road out, you're going to crumble. You're going to fucking fold. And some people don't come back from that. I promise you that. Some people never come back from that because they don't know how. They haven't been in those waters, and they don't have a good cast and crew around them. They don't have people with good character, quality traits that will allow them to come back above water. So like I always say, man, try to lay that perfect brick. Try to lay that foundation. One brick at a time, one brick at a time. Go towards the hard things. I know it's going to fucking cry. Go through it. It's just a little fucking pain. Go through it. Go through it. Make that file folder in your head. Get those calluses for life. And not even in a bad way. Just build that fucking thick layer that things just bounce off of you. When you go through pain or hard times, it's like, I've seen worse. I've been through worse. I'm here. Life is coming, but I'm here. I'm standing. You won't regret it. I promise you. You won't regret it. It'll suck while you're going through it in real time. But when you're sitting back in grandma's old rocking chair with that half and half Arnold Palmer, and you're watching your kids run around in the yard, splitting image of you, you're going to roll that Rolodex. You're going to say, you know what, man, I'm glad I took the road that I took. I'm glad I did the things that I done. Because it's brought me here, and I'm content. I'm satisfied. It's important. I know I made the right decisions. I know I chose the right path. I know I've done everything I could in life to make my life easier for other people by taking the hard way. Well, that's it for today's show, guys. I appreciate you tuning in to episode 7. Haven't came up with a title for the show, but I'm sure it'll be fly. Make sure you like my shit, man. Share my shit. Like it. If you feel like you know somebody is going through the same thing, man, share this podcast with them, man. Because this was a deep podcast, in my opinion. You might think it's a polished shit, but in my opinion, I think this helps some people today, man. So, as always, man, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next podcast.